So this is something that's going on in California, and I remember there was a couple questions I asked where the Safety Act came up prominently, and I was like, okay, I need to look into to what it actually is, and get a good description and definition for it. So, what is the Safety Act that's currently going through the California Congress? What's the current state of it? Can you go into details for? Okay. While it's doing that, see if YouTube. Oh, I don't know if we want year on that. OFCOM is getting sued over Online Safety Act. What is the Online Safety? The Online Safety Act? I don't know if that's the same thing. Is the Online Safety Act and Safety Act different? Here we go. Let's read this one. As of May 14th, 2026, there are two primary pieces of legislation referred to as the Safety Act. Well, I think that's where my misunderstanding is coming from. So let's see if we can figure this out. Making significant waves in the California state legislature, often colloquially called the California Congress. First, make sure I'm saying it right.
Colloquially.
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 Colloquially defined. Colloquially is an adverb meaning to speak or write in an informal, conversational style rather than a formal or academic language. Speak or write informal. Okay. Okay, so it's often called the California Congress, the California State Legislature. Okay. One is a high-profile social media safety bill currently moving through the committee process, and the other is a gender identity disclosure law that was recently blocked by the US Supreme Court. Well, both of these sound very interesting, but I think this is the one that kept coming up. Okay. The Social Media Safety Act. The Youth Social Media Ban. Ooh. This is the most active safety act currently working its way through the legislative meat grinder. Current state. As of May 14th, 2026, the bill was on the Assembly Appropriations Committee's suspense file agenda. Critical hurdle where bills with significant fiscal impacts are decided. It is currently being fast tracked by proponents despite intense opposition from civil liberties groups. Okay, so it's at the committee stage. So usually in most congresses or legislatives it goes like they have a vote on it or they talk about it, and then in the Congress, and then they send it to a committee, and a committee does all the legwork on the bill before it is then sent back for a vote, become law. Sometimes it's got to go to multiple committees, or that kind of just depends on the democratic and legal system. But so it goes to a committee. The committee does all the legwork of the bill, do all the research, and then presents that research to the Congress as whole, and then they vote on it. Just because it's in committee doesn't mean it's going to pass. But the fact it's being fast tracked, I mean, it seems to think that it's going to pass. Well, we'll see if they bring up anything about it. The ban. It would prohibit social media platforms from allowing users under the age of 16 to create accounts. So this is very similar to Australia. Although the Australia one, I think they're rolling that one out in like steps. And the first stage wasn't they've already used wasn't as firm as they wanted. There was a lot of like loopholes, and people can still get through it. And now they're working on patching those holes. So we'll see. But it's interesting that the California seems to be copying them quickly. Identity verification. It mandates that all users, regardless of age, provide government-issued ID or undergo highly reliable biometric age verification to access social media platforms. I don't think you're ever going to get highly reliable biometric age verification to access social media platforms. Like, a kid could just be like, "Hey, Dad, let me see your face for a second here. Just hold still. Yeah, perfect. Okay, now I got my social." I'm like, let me hold up a picture, or let me create a 3D model on a computer, and that'll let me get through. Like, I don't know if that is ever going to work, which means government issued ID is probably going to be the thing you need. And I imagine, like, if they're smart, they'll turn it into some kind of digital ID. That you don't have to give your ID to every place, and you just have to give your digital ID, and then the government confirms, yes, this is who they say they are. But we're not there yet. That would actually, this is a case where digital ID would actually make the process easier. Addictive feeds. It would ban the use of addictive algorithm-driven feeds for minors without explicit parental consent. Isn't that all feeds? Like, all algorithms are designed this way? Like, that's just kind of how it is. If you can't make an algorithm-driven feed, then what? You make it so they have to search and find content? I mean, I don't know. To me, like, the feed system where it like offers you, in many of the swipe apps, it's just, oh, the next thing is chosen for you, that you get to choose whether to swipe through or not. And then it learns, and then it figures out what you don't swipe through, and it gives you more of that. But for things like YouTube, they also have algorithm-driven feed. When you watch a video, let's say we're going to watch this one, they have one that'll pop up next, right?
You may never.
So they're everywhere. How do you get rid of that for people under 16? Are you trying to get rid of that for everyone? I mean, that seems excessive. But they said specifically for minors. I don't know about that one. Penalties. Large platforms could face fines of up to 5,000 per violation if they fail to enforce these age gates. So what, like 5,000 per day? So if you let like a 14-year-old on for 2 years, and then they hit 16 and they can finally like get there, then they can like fine you for 2 years worth of 5,000 a day. Like that would be large enough to have an impact. But if it's just 5,000 like per person, That's just going to be cost of doing business. The debate. Proponents, led by Assemblymember Josh Lorathel, argue the bill is a necessary response to a youth mental health crisis. Definitely. I would also say a youth unhappiness crisis. How I would personally phrase it. But that's another way of saying the same thing. Driven by predatory algorithms. Opponents, including the EFF and ACLU, argue it effectively ends online autonomy for adults and isolate marginalized youth who rely on social media for community. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I support the ban. I think you have to do it carefully because like, honestly, I personally support the use of a ban and would support some kind of digital ID, that you provide your identification to the government and a government system, and then when you need to validate your ID, you do so through the government, and then the government can be like, yes, you want to log into your social media, you validate through the government, and the government goes, yes, this is who they say they are. And that way, not every social media company has your ID. Because you just know, if it's not done this way, they're going to require, every site's going to require your ID. And they're just collecting IDs that can then be used to like impersonate or whatever. Yeah, so that, like, I think you need to build a system if you want to put this in place. And I think we have the technology to build it now. We just need to do it. And once you have a digital ID system, then you can then it would allow you to enforce a ban for under 16. Without it, it's going to be hard. You're going to face all the same problems that the Australian system is currently facing, where people just get through the system or don't even get affected by it. Okay, so this is the Social Media Safety Act. Now we're going to look at the Safety Act. I think this is the one that has come up multiple times for other things I've been looking at. Support academic freedom and enshrine transparency for youth. While this was signed into law in 2024, it is currently going through a major legal crisis in the courts that has put it back at the center of legislative debate this month. Current state. In late April/early May 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a landmark ruling that effectively blocked the enforcement of the Safety Act. The court held that the law's blanket non-disclosure policy violates constitutional rights of parents. Blanket non-disclosure policy. Is this the one they were calling like the anti-Nick Shirley bill, I think? Okay, key details. The goal. The act originally barred school districts from enacting forced outing policies. Okay, give me a second. So, the act prevented schools from creating forced outing policy. So if a school wanted a policy where if a kid came out at school as trans or gay or something, The school is not able to create a law to make the teachers tell the parents. Prevented the schools from making that law, or like making that rule or that policy. So essentially, it was forcibly allowing children to, if they come out at school, the school could then not tell the parents about them coming out. Like if they came out as being trans or came out as being gay, the school was no longer able to tell the parent about that. Rules that require teachers to notify parents if a student changes their pronouns or gender identity at schools. Okay, so specifically pronouns or gender identity. The legal conflict. The Trump era Department of Education and the Supreme Court majority argued that California cannot shut parents out of critical decisions regarding their children's mental health. I mean, like, I largely agree with that. Like, if I had a kid and they came out as a different gender identity at school, that's something I'd like to know. And the Safety Act prevented that. Impacts. This ruling has triggered a wave of new parental rights bills in the California legislature this week. A conservative lawmaker looked to capitalize on the Supreme Court's decision to mandate disclosure. Okay. So then, if this bill was struck down by the Supreme Court, that effectively blocked the enforcement of the Safety Act. So now schools are allowed to tell parents about, like, they're not forced to, but they're allowed to create the policies to tell parents when their children comes out with a change of pronouns or a gender or different gender identity. I mean, like, I feel like that's something the parents should know. Like, we always talk about how important parenting is to children, then you deprive them of important information about their children. How are they supposed to properly parent? I don't quite follow that. Like maybe they're trying to, I don't know. I don't know what the law was designed to stop. Because like there is bad parenting now, obviously. But like, because of some bad parenting, you prevent good parents from getting proper information about their children. I just don't see it helping at all. I'm actually quite supportive that the Supreme Court has struck this one down. But this is the one I want to know more about. Read that one too, but let's how do we phrase this? What do they call it? Pronouns or gender identities? Since AB 1955, the Safety Act was struck down by the Supreme Courts, do the schools in California tell parents when a child changes pronouns or their gender identity at school? What's the current state of that? We do not need a question mark there. Tell parents. We do need a question mark there. What's current state of that? Why do we have two questions? Okay. Well, it thinks we're going to go back and we're going to read this one. Okay. Well, it thinks we're going to go back and we're going to read this one. Stop scrolling for SB 53, the Frontier AI Safety Act. Ooh, there's a third one. If you're following technology news, is the AI safety legislation you are likely hearing about. Current state. After the why are there 3 safety acts? Can you not come up with better names? Current state. After the original AI Safety Act was vetoed in 2024, the state passed SB 53, the Transparency and Frontier AI Act, in late 2025. It is currently in the implementation phase, with new reporting requirements taking effect this year. It requires developers of frontier models to submit public safety plans to the state. Whistleblower protection. It protects AI lab employees who report catastrophic risk or cybersecurity failures to California authorities. National move. Senator Scott Wayner. The bill author is currently using the success of this law as a platform for his 2026 congressional run. You need to take these California standards to the federal level. I mean, I largely agree with a lot of AI regulation. Whistleblower protection, absolutely. Like, I think this should be something done federally in Canada and the US. Safety protocols. It requires developers of frontier models, the most powerful AI systems. So we're talking big companies then, to submit public safety plans to the state. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. The whistleblower protection stuff I support a lot though. Like, as long as it doesn't act like a regulation on smaller developers. Because as soon as you start doing that, then you start creating barriers to entry and you will have less innovation. But if it's just like frontier models, the most powerful AI systems, then I think that's fine. I actually like that one. Looks like California is doing more for AI legislation than the US government. 3 different safety acts. Why it matters to you. If AB 1709 your experience with browsers like Brave or tools like OBS might be impacted by new identity verification requirements for any social linked services you use. I mean, I guess if this is done in the US, I imagine OBS and Brave would make what you see quite often is if a large enough market requires or forces a change, you see the change in the whole product. Rather than just changing the product for that specific market, you usually just see a blanket change across the whole product. Because if one place is going to implement these regulations, it's highly likely another place will also implement. And so changing the product to just across the board is usually what. Now that I think about it, give me a second. I have not edited my stream information. Yes. Okay. Just they were talking about the safety. Talked about all 3. Still in just chatting. This will just. YouTube. Entertainment? Yeah, sure. Right. Let's continue. So when the Safety Act I was thinking about was definitely this one. And this is not the same as that, the anti-Nick Shirley law or whatever. I don't. Maybe I'll look that one up next. Okay. The current situation in California is a complex legal tug-of-war between state laws and federal court mandates. While the Safety Act remains on the books, recent Supreme Court intervention has significantly changed how schools handle parental notifications. As of May 2026, here's a breakdown of the current state of parental notifications in California schools. 1. Supreme Court intervention. On March 2nd, 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court issued an emergency ruling that effectively reinstituted a permanent injunction against California's non-disclosure policies. The court held that parents have a federal constitutional right to be informed if their child expresses gender incongruence at school.
Colloquially. Incongruence.
Incongruence. Like a difference from what they usually show. Congruence is the state of not fitting well together, incompatibility, or a lack of harmony between elements. Congruent.
Incongruence.
They're able to be informed if their child expresses gender incongruence at school. So like a different from what they usually show. Okay. Or what they show them. The impact. The court ruled that schools cannot permit or require employees to mislead parents or withhold information about a child's gender presentation or social transitioning. I mean, like, I agree with this one. It's been a while since I agreed with the Supreme Court. The current state of AB 1955, the Safety Act. The Safety Act was originally designed to prohibit school districts from outing students without their consent. Technical law, like we already know what the legally blocked. Information or records regarding their child gender identity, the school cannot refuse or hide information. Okay. The Safety Act was originally designed to prohibit school districts from outing students without their consent. Technical law. The act is still in effect, meaning schools cannot create mandatory automatic notification policies that require teachers to police gender and proactively call parents the moment a change occurs. I mean, that's fine. Legally blocked, however, because of the injunction, the Maribel injunction. If a parent asks a school for information or recording regarding their child's gender identity, the school cannot refuse or hide that information. Citing AB 1955. I'm going to guess this also extends to, like, if you're asking general questions about your child's actions at school, like how are they getting along, like parent-teacher interview, when you go in and you do general stuff, I imagine they cannot hide this information, even if like you don't specifically ask for it, but you're looking for how they interact with other students at school. Very typical. That you can't hide if they have changed their gender identity, but you're not required to report it Like you're not going to send an email out the day of. It's something that probably cannot be hidden during a parent-teacher interview. Parental access via FERPA. In early 2026, the California Department of Education updated its guidelines to clarify the relationship between state law and federal records law. Right to inspect. Parents have a federal right under FERPA to inspect and review all educational records. What counts? This includes things like gender support plans, school health records, or official name/pronoun changes requests maintained by the school. Federal funding. In January 2026, the U.S. Department of Education warned California that withholding these records could result in a loss of federal funding, leading to the CDE's more cooperative guidance in February. California Department of Education. Okay. All right. Summary of the current state. Scenario, what happens? Proactive notification. Schools generally do not have proactive call parents the second the student mentions a new pronouns unless a local district policy says otherwise. Parent inquiry. If a parent asks the school about their child's gender identity or presentation, the school must be truthful and cannot withhold the information. Record requests. Parents have the right to see any written records, like gender support plans, that mention a student's identity. Teachers' rights. Under the Maribel ruling, teachers are protected from being disciplined if they choose to share gender identity information with parents. Yeah, that's weird, right? Because you're technically at odds with a state level law while following federal level law. And so they need to have protections. Okay. Bottom line, while California tries to create a privacy shield for students with AB 1955, the federal courts have essentially opened a door for parents. Schools are now caught between a state law that discourages forced outing and a federal court order that protects a parent's rights to know. I mean, that's not a good place to put California teachers, in my opinion.